So, welcome to this 3P conversation. I am delighted to be joined by my friend, mentor, fellow coach, and delightful, amazing tarot reader with a twist. That's the language we're going to go with, tarot reading with a twist. Vanessa Talbot, who we would have known each other for a decade now. We've been hanging out. It's 2016 that we would have first interacted. Doesn't time fly?
And you don't live that far from me either, really, considering where
No,
this
no.
podcast would
I
reach.
was going to say, yeah, considering the size of the country, we're actually reasonably close. So I'm delighted to be here today to talk with you about the patterns and whatever else we come up with around the tarot. So I know, like I said, you teach tarot with a twist, and it's really that point of difference that you bring. It's not just draw the cards and read the book. Tell us a little bit about your background with tarot. So I know you've been doing it for quite some time. Tell us about where you started with tarot, what
Been
drew you
reading,
to it.
yeah, I've been reading tarot and working with tarot for, I'm trying to think now, it'd be over 40 years. So
Mm.
it's been a long, long time. I think I first picked up a tarot deck, and I think my mother bought it for me as a gift. I was about 18. So that's how long, and I'm 60 now. So that's a fair while that I've been playing with the tarot. And she bought me this particular deck, which I'll show off now, and it's literally called the Mythic Tarot. And this is the deck she gave me, and it's still the deck that I use, even though I've got multiple other decks. This is still that same magic deck that my mother gave me when I was about 18. I'd already always been interested in, the supernatural. And so it seemed logical, I suppose, when you're interested in this sort of other world, that you might start to look into other ways of reaching it. So, of course, the tarot, when she gave it to me, I kind of picked it up straight away and was attracted to it straight away. Um, just used to just play with them as most people do, just doing your own little pull a card and doing your readings. And then my aunt had a new age shop back in those days in the country town that we lived in Western Australia. And she had people, coming in all the time and saying, "Do you do tarot readings?" Of course, she didn't. So she said to me, "Do you want to come down and read?" And I thought, "Oh my God, that's throwing me in." And I had no clue what I was doing. No clue. I had none of the experience that, you and Amy, Amy, you and I have now in these
Mm.
days.
Mm.
And I was just young and just thrown into it. And I found that when I was doing these readings for people, even though I was really scared about doing it, the information was always correct.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, what's going on here? I
Yeah.
used to have to go home and just have a bath every time, almost like you just took on so much energy with these readings, and they were quite intense, a lot of them. And I'd have to have a bath to just shed it all.
Yeah.
But that's what I found. And so I have now been reading on and off for a long period of time, international clients all over the world, everything from high-end celebrities down to the normal person, who just wants tarot reading to find out where their soulmate is. So there's this massive big divide in terms of readings, but that's how it's happened over the years. And I really feel that they are a tool of absolute magic.
Mm. There's definitely magic there. And there is definitely, the more and I would say I'm still dabbling in tarot and a bunch of other things. The more I dabble in those mystical practices, the harder it is to maintain my skepticism
Mm.
because there is so much that comes through that becomes really valuable and helpful. And the messages from the tarot, even the messages in the Reiki, I've just started sending my husband to Reiki. And he went in very skeptical. And I think we're at about 4 appointments now. And he came home the other day. He said, "I'm starting to struggle to be skeptical because he's seeing the results." And what I heard from you in those early days, you went in and you were um, scared and you were frightened and you didn't really know what you were doing, which is how all of us start anything that we're
Yeah,
starting, let's
exactly.
face it.
Mm.
But then you started to see the results.
Yes, it
And
was
so
the results. Yeah, yeah.
when we start to see the results, I think that's a pattern. At some point, I may unpack that pattern of like the fear and the skepticism to that acceptance and that knowing, and we can bypass that somewhat. But for the tarot reading, you also probably started noticing the patterns in the
Yep.
cards and in the way they play out. For anyone that doesn't know what tarot is, let's just do a very basic overview of what's involved in a tarot deck, what's included in a tarot deck.
So tarot is a set of cards originally created, basically used as a fortune-telling guidance tool. I think originally sort of 1800s is when they came to their full force. So they're a deck of cards with particular illustrations. And each illustration, like many of those fortune-telling card decks, is what tells a story. And the tarot, and this is where we'll start talking about your patterns and that when you're ready, are divided into distinct sections and ruled by certain energies. So I've discovered over time, most people don't see it that way. They just see it as that deck of images that all tell a story. You know, depending what image you get, just like reading tea leaves, depending what image you get, there's your fortune, so to speak. I've uncovered over the years there's a lot more to it than that when you go really, really in depth. But yeah, so originally kind of created back in those older days, the gypsies would, you know, go around and tell people's fortunes with these particular cards as well. So it's very, very connected with them. But now, of course, anyone who feels that sort of way inclined can pick up a deck of tarot and have a guidebook to help them read them.
We'll come back to the guidebook in just a second. There was something that came up. The difference between a tarot deck and the oracle cards. So tarot decks do have those patterns underlying, and some of the oracles do as well, but generally the oracles are a bunch of messages without that underlying pattern, whereas the tarot has that underlying pattern.
The tarot, when you look at it, divided into two sections. One is called the Minor Arcana and one is called the Major Arcana. And the Major Arcana in particular is a storyline that the Fool goes on. So he is discovering, it's his development and his inner discovery of all that he experiences on this Fool's journey that is in the Major Arcana. So the images reflect that Fool's journey along the way. So that's what that is. While the Minor Arcana are a series of suites, and they are 4 of them, and each of them is then divided into a different sort of energy element. And they are telling stories as well within those energy elements. So whether they are fire or water, for example, it will tell a bit of a story depending again on numbers, which again goes into the numerology of the tarot. As you pointed out, the oracle, on the other hand, is usually a series of cards that people create with a message on it. Very random, whatever messages they want to put on an oracle deck. And you get that message, and that's your message. Well, the tarot is a lot more intricate, and therefore a lot of people tend to avoid learning tarot because it is actually more difficult. Well, the oracle card, you don't have to learn it because the message is on the card when you open it up. Well, the tarot, especially when you put it together in spreads, starts to give a myriad of situations and what you can interpret from the way that those 72 cards come out, depending on what spreads you use, whether you use 3 cards or 20 cards or whatever.
Yeah. So for me, the difference between the oracle and the tarot, it's the oracle will give you the message, and that generally will align with where you're at. You'll read the message and you'll either resonate with it or you'll reject it, which is still, whether we resonate or we reject, if we've got an emotional response to it, it's what we're attracting at the moment. That's a whole other conversation as well. Whereas the tarot allows for the different perspectives. And so often we come in fixated, and I'm sure you would have seen this in people coming to you for readings. It's like, I've got this problem and I'm looking at it through this lens. And what the tarot does is opens up a new lens, a new perspective through the patterns. So if we come in and we're highly emotional, then it may shift us, which I believe is water. We're going to test my recollection of what I learned from you about tarot. But we might want to look at that from a different angle. So rather than the emotional, maybe we want to come in with the swords. Maybe we want to come in from this different angle, and we can bring the perspectives. That's one of the things that I've been, and at the moment the deck on my table is an I Ching deck rather than a tarot deck. the tarot deck is there as well. There's sort of multiple, and I've got an archetype deck, and I've got oracle decks, and I've got pick a deck. But that perspective shift. So when I'm looking for a perspective shift,
Yep.
and that's where the layouts to me come in handy. It's like, okay, well, this is the perspective of the now. This is the perspective of the you could take on into the future.
Yeah, and a lot of people confuse the tarot as a fortune telling tool.
Mm.
I'll just tell your future with the tarot. It's not. It's exactly, well, you can make it that, but that's not the talent of a professional reader. Professional reader looks at it in exactly the same way you do. It's about the different perspectives that the tarot will offer, and also the energies that it aligns with as well in you. So yes, it is a development tool. It does change perspective in exactly what you're talking about, the problem that they might be looking at.
Mm.
And it may give you different perspectives to look at this issue. One thing the tarot will never do is give you a completely direct answer either, because the power is in the seeker. The tarot are there to open the seeker's, yes, perspective, mind for other ways to approach the problem that they have got themselves stuck in. And that is the power of the tarot, which most people are not aware of. They think it's just a fortune-telling tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we start looking at it as a perspective shifter and an energy, like if we're in a certain energy and we're trying to remember the quote. It's like if we're trying to solve the problem with the thinking that created it, I think it's an Einstein quote. You can't solve the thinking with the thinking that created it. What the tarot does, and any number of tools, but the tarot in this particular conversation, it allows us to swap the perspective, the thinking, and actually come at things from a different angle. And once we switch our perspective, we open and expand, as you say, that mind to looking at so much more than what we were initially. And so it's very easy to come in with, this is the perspective that I've got, this is how we're going to deal with the problem. Whereas the tarot, just in the nature of it, goes, well, have you considered this perspective? And I would say 90% of the time when I'm pulling out a card, no, I have not. Like, I haven't looked at it from that angle. And I imagine that's the same for most of the people you're doing readings for. Have you considered this perspective? No, they have not. Because if we've considered all of the perspectives, and obviously, I mean, I think 72 cards in the deck, you said, that's a lot of perspectives to consider. And most of us aren't sitting down systematically going through every perspective, which I think would be pointless, but drawing our attention to this perspective and any other perspective will do.
Yeah. And as much as I dislike the word clarity, it's not one of my favorite words.
It's absolutely your favorite word.
However, that is what the tarot will do, because you are getting different views to look at things. It will actually start to take all that confusion out of your head and actually narrow stuff down and give you clarity on what it is that you're looking for. And hence then with clarity, your future is created.
Yes.
Confusion can't create a future. It'll just be a tumble mess. But clarity brings direction and focus that then enables you to create the future.
This may be far more philosophical than I meant to, but is our future predetermined? So when we're looking at, and I know you're not strongly into future reading from tarot and are more into the perspective reading of tarot, but I have this question that has bubbled up, is the future predetermined? Is that why the tarot cards can read the future? Or is drawing the tarot cards, I've got Neo in the Matrix with the, when he breaks the vase and she says, what's going to blow your mind is if I hadn't mentioned it, would you have broken it in the first place? I had no idea that's where we were going to go, but that's where we are. I'm wondering if you have insights. If you don't have insights, I get it, because that's left field.
I do. In terms of the future, I think it's a combination. I think that we are placed on here with some form of destiny to some degree, that we are meant to fulfill, but it is our choice from our perspectives and the decisions we make, whether we fulfill those destinies. Does that make sense? So I think we come in here with a purpose of some sort. How we get to that purpose, I don't think is always completely predefined. We do have amazing things like synchronicities and encounters that starts to bring it all together brilliantly, which I think that they in some way are meant to be predetermined. However, will we recognize them or will we not?
Mm.
And, when faced with these opportunities or forks in the road, that's when it's our free will, whether we connect the dots, so to speak, in those synchronicities and everything else that comes together. So a combination of both, I feel, having done this work for quite some time. If you were here to come on earth and be, a brilliant pianist, and yet as much as you sat and loved music, you allowed things like self-doubt and fear to get in the way of perhaps you going to auditions to join an orchestra or something where you'd be able to start and doing your skills even more, then that's going to get in the way of your future as being this amazing pianist.
There's a movie I watched yesterday, the day before. I saw a reel and I went, I need more context for that. And then I went and found the movie. It was a Disney movie called Soul. And it was talking about purpose. And the little reel that I saw was literally laughing. He's like, you mentors with your purpose, you have no idea. And I'm like, well, now I need way more context around that. And it was interesting because the world is all these little souls up waiting for their incarnation into Earth, and they're gathering personalities. Well, they're not gathering their purpose. That was the point, was that they were gathering their spark. And so the pianist would have a spark, but that spark isn't necessarily our purpose. So living aligned with the spark tends to feel good, but the purpose was just to come and live and to experience. It was an interesting shaping it and step back from, I need to know my meaning, I need to define my purpose, I'm watching at least one of my teenagers, probably all of them at the moment, struggling with, I'm going out into the world. They're all sort of coming towards the end of schooling and starting to look for jobs, and I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my meaning is. I don't know what it's this interesting space. And it's just like, just chill and follow a path and look for the synchronicities, but you can't see them until you're walking the path.
Follow the sparks.
Yeah, definitely follow the
Because
sparks.
you're correct. The purpose for everyone is to live, and to live in a sense of joy and contentment with who they are and what they're doing, really. And so, as you said, all those little sparks give us our talents and our gifts. And if you follow your talents and your gifts, you'll always be in a sense of, and life is not about being happy all the time either, I would say. Do you know what I mean? This idea that we have to be completely joyful all the time, I feel, is just ridiculous. Life is life, and it is a series of ups and downs and the human experience. So you're going to experience all of it. I think it's about acceptance that you are on that path to experience all of it. But when you follow your sparks, there are all those little things that you like to do and you find you're good at them or they interest you, that's going to fill your life with that joy and contentment, which is at the end of the day the purpose. So it all ties in together in that way. When we're taken off our pathways, is where we're experiencing too much discontent. And we're not to be here in life in a place of constant disconnect. Doesn't mean we don't feel it, because we have to have, life is life and it's a journey. You only have to look at nature to understand that it's not all roses and life is life.
Well, and there's the seasons and there's the different experiencing cycles through the different, even experiencing through, like if we look at the 4 tarot pieces, so experiencing something through fire that rather than experiencing it through water is going to create a very different experience, and yet the experience is still there. It's the how are we showing up to it.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting. If you want to, I'll quickly go through those to show you those different energies, because then you'll get to see these patterns. So in the Minor Arcana, so for anyone who's not tarot, don't worry too much about major and minor, but there is these sections, these 4 sections, and broken down. And they are broken into these energies. And cups is about water. So this is one of the cups images. And so when you are in the energy of water, it's more intuitive, it's more feeling, it's more flow. So we can read from that aspect, that's the energy that this person has to experience or is about to experience, or it's got some impact on the
Yeah.
question that they have.
Or could
If we,
choose to experience. If we go
or
back
two,
to there's the predestination and there's the free will, it
yeah.
becomes a choice for us when we get the cards.
And then we have the fire element. And these are, the patterns that you'll see. I'm trying to bring that up
Yeah.
without too much
Just
light.
the
So
glares
you
here.
always see he's got some fire in his hand. So the fire element, when it comes through, this is our patterns: water, fire. Um, and you'll see these elements in earth all everywhere. So they are just bringing earth elements into the tarot, but each element carries an energy. So if you can imagine the element of fire, what do you think of? It's fast, it's curiosity, it's creativity, it's drive. It's all those things that come through with this fast element of fire. So we bring that then with our reading. The other one we have is the element of air that comes through in swords. So they always carry a sword. And you think of the sword as, cutting through. So this element of air is about decisiveness, clarity. It's also turbulence as well, because when air comes in and there's a storm or something, it's turbulence and conflict. So you have that just slices through things, hence the sword.
Yeah.
And then the last element is the one of earth, which is the pentacles. There's our King of Pentacles there, and he holds that coin in his hand. And when you think of the element of earth, it really is down to earth. It's steady, it's reliable, it's that survival, but thriving with that survival. It's family, it's money, it's possessions, it's career, it's safety. And all that comes through in the groundedness of the earth element. So that is one pattern that is in the tarot card, is working with those elements.
And in that, to go to the next piece of that, so you've got the four elements, and then you've got 13 stages of those elements within that. So the numbers 1 through 10, page, the queen, and the king.
Yeah. So this is where your pattern of numerology comes in. So, the tarot are amazing because they've got multiple things happening in them.
Three or four patterns playing.
Yeah, they're all playing together. So, a lot of people might just study numerology and that's where it ends. But we're looking at the energies and the elements and the influence of them on numerology. So they are 1 to 10, the cards. And in that normal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, each number has a meaning. And then how that is applied depends on the elements. So a 1 of fire, which means that rush of creative drive and energy coming in fast, is very different than, say, the 1 of cups. And if you think of the softer element of the water coming through in that as well. So, whether it's a 1, the 5s are usually some form of struggle. So we take our classic numerology and apply it to those elements and work all the way through. So we've got 2 patterns at play here, because our 5 will mean our struggle. So what does struggle in air mean? What does struggle in earth mean? What could be happening for you if you are struggling with that 5 of swords card, air element, in comparison to if it showed up as a 5 of pentacles? So you start to see just how intricate but pattern orientated this is. And then, as you pointed out, you've got those 4 at the end, which are the page, king, and queen, which we call the court cards. And they in themselves hold a sort of court energy as well. Page is like beginnings. Knight is like this, I kind of call it a little bit schizophrenic, really, with a night energy, but they're the adventure energy, yes, no. And if I'm going to go yes, it's full forward. And if not, I'm going to be quite difficult. So we have that. And then we have the lovely stable effect of the queen energy, and then the king with this dynamic energy. So you'll get different energies with those as well. So imagine then applying that to whether we're working with earth or wind or fire or water as well. So now you start to see, just in the minor card alone, all those patterns in there working together, and just how much perspectives it can give you depending on what they show up as.
Yeah. And it is dancing through. So one of the questions that I asked, and I must admit I was really lazy and I used ChatGPT to read the cards for me because I just couldn't be bothered. But was choosing the name of the podcast. So I was tossing up between 3P Conversations and 3P Club. And the Five of Wands is in I do an annual reading. And I know you do this for some people as well, where you'll do an annual reading with the
Yes.
12 different houses, and you do it for business and personal and play in that. And it's something that I learned from you, and then, as I do with everything, took it and morphed it and made my own version of it that I utilize for myself. And so I've got tarot cards in there, and I've got archetypes in there, and I've got all kinds of energies in there. But it was the asking, and it's like, okay, well, I've got the Five of Wands in this social dynamic house, which is house 11, which is adding in another different pattern of the astrological houses. And what does that mean for club versus conversations? And I could have come to it on my own, but I was feeling lazy. And it spoke about the difference between the Five of Wands and the way that dances out with passion in conversation. So you and I, right now, there is definitely that energy, and there's contrasting perspectives, which is the whole purpose of these conversations. Contrasting perspectives in a conversation is very different to contrasting perspectives in a big community that then needs to be managed. And it made it very easy for me to go, if I'm going to get contrasting perspectives in this chaos of the five, then let's just do it with 2 or 3 people at a time. And let's put the community focus somewhere else and shift that. There were other elements, but that perspective was really good, because that bringing the Five of Wands, which is that passion and that quite a dynamic energy, bringing that to a conversation rather than a club creates a very different dynamic. And
absolutely,
the question that came back was, how much energy do you want to put into this? And I'm like, yeah, not that much. Like, yes, that much. I'm happy to put a huge amount into the conversations and explore the perspectives, but in terms of managing conflict within a community, no, I'll pass on that, thank you. So it just brings that very different perspective to life.
Yeah,
from that one card for that one question.
I think if you're going to get the Five of Wands, you're probably better off with, the one-to-one, or just a few people all getting that creative dynamic together, rather than a community with a Five of Wands might be a bit more challenging. So
yeah, and I love the contrast. That's the whole purpose of this, is to bring the different perspectives and to bring that very creative energy. Let's contain it slightly though.
Yeah.
And then you can layer in beyond that the major arcana. And so we've got the different energies coming in from the 4 elements, and the different energies coming in from the 4 court characters, and then the 10 numbers. And then you can layer in the major arcana. The word major, I don't know how you feel about it, but it always feels big. Like there's the little and the big, and I don't think that that's necessarily accurate.
No,
but that's
one of the things I'll disagree with tarot is when they say that the minor arcana of less importance than the major, and therefore the major, if it shows up in a reading, has more impact. I say no. Every one of them is as impactful as others. It's just that these are dealing with these particular numerology energies mixed with what we've referred to, the elemental energy, and even the court card energies of those, whether you're a page or a knight, are you a volatile energy or a stable energy? All those things are happening there. While in the major arcana, you're dealing with a journey and an archetypal journey as well, which is what I love about the major arcana. It's much easier for most people to actually read the major arcana. I do the trainings, and I find that they seem to be able to take that on really easily, but give them the minor arcana because there's so much involved and that they'll struggle. But it's not that they're struggling, it's because they're too busy trying to memorize cards according to what the guidebook said.
And trying to memorize 52 cards as opposed to
here's
4
the element
elements,
of fire, and here's your
numbers.
numerology of 4, for example. Yeah, exactly. So this is why I treat it the way that I do. But when you have this major arcana journey, which is the elemental, either characters or archetypal, either characters or situations in this journey. And so then they become this this gorgeous, luscious journey, but it's not more impactful in a reading, in a position, in a spread, than any of the minors. They all come together to create. And with 72 cards, can you imagine, and, spreads, how many, I haven't worked out the maths, but how many
it's beyond my
different
possibilities
possibilities there are that come through with a reading for a particular problem. So everyone says, oh, you must get bored with hearing the same old questions all the time, because most people do come with the same questions. It's like, nope, because there is never, going to be, with that amount of cards and that amount of positioning all happening, the scope is endless as to what comes up for me to enable that person to approach their particular question in a way that is nowhere near what the last person with the same question came through with.
Yeah. My brain, of course, has gone into the numbers and how many
I
possibilities.
know. I try to block it off because I just say, oh my God, how many? It's an endless amount of possibilities when you put those numbers together as to what's going to show up in those combinations of spreads.
Yeah, so you get 72 for the first, like a 3-card spread. You've got 72, and then you've got 71 options in the next one. So you get 72 times 71 times 70 for that third card.
Oh,
and then I know, and then my brain, I'm like, yeah, now I can't. But if anyone wants to use the calculator and work it out, it would be for a 3-card spread. And then, I mean, we talk about the 12-card spread of the astrological houses.
I know.
Is where, and anywhere in between, there's a whole range of different layouts and spreads that one can.
Yeah, I would never have had one the same, and I've been reading for 40 years. Never. It's all so different.
Yeah. And I know occasionally you'll get a common thread when we've done the annual readings. You'll notice there's a singular common card kind of comes out from multiple people. I think that's partly because we'll attract energies similar to us, and so that's not your energy coming through in the reading, but just your energy and who you've attracted.
Yeah, one of the very interesting things that I have noticed in the 25 and the 26 readings, so I don't know how it's going to play out, but one of the cards that came up in one of the houses, which was in everyone's spiritual house. So doing the 25 and the 26 readings, 25 in particular, but it certainly showed up in 26 as well, is in that spiritual house. A lot of people's spiritual world was in some way going to be turned upside down, completely broken down. So it was the Tower that came up in a vast majority. So same card, same place, saying that across this year, 25 and also 26, that there was going to be this complete breakdown for people in the terms of their spirituality, which is how they really, when you think about spirituality, it's how we rise above stuff. It's a belief we hold on to. It's a guidance factor. It's something for us to cling on to no matter what's going on. Now, if that's completely just dropped to the ground in 25, 26, and you sit there and you go, wow, that's a common theme happening for a lot of people. And I actually think it's more likely to really come into force in 26.
Yeah. It's a consistent message coming through from several different angles. There's a guy whose name eludes me, Lee Harris, I think, but please don't quote me on that. And he does channeled readings, which is, again, still tapping into that mystical. It's just a different method and a different tool. And he's saying the same kind of thing. It's like that 25, 26, there's this collapse. And then you've got the Chinese symbols, the year symbols. So we're coming into the fire horse year and coming out of the snake, and that snake is all about shedding, and again, it's that kind of collapse. And so that message is coming through on many levels and many different places.
That was a very common pattern when I was doing those 25 and then 26 readings as well. But I think it's, as you pointed out, it's a lot of it was the shedding in 25, and now 26. I think we have to be open to see what the heck happened. And it's coming. And we can already see, and I don't want to timestamp your thing here, so I'm not going to mention events, but we can already see things happening in 26 where people are starting to jaw drop and, oh my God, wake up to things that are happening. And then I think these revelations lead to even more and more and more. And there's all sorts of different factors that are leading towards openings, put it that way, or revelations. And I think this will be the year of the revelations. And for some people in their spiritual house, this idea of this tower, which is part of this archetypal journey where everything that you thought and believed is pulled from under you.
So you talked about the fool's journey in the Major Arcana. In many ways, it also resonates with the hero's journey that many will have learnt about.
It's
the same thing. Yeah. But that tower is it's that Death Star moment. It's that moment where you're standing there and everything has been stripped from you and you're left having to rely on and reformulate. And for anyone not clued into what a Death Star moment is, it's a scene from Star Wars. Go and watch Star Wars. I've only watched the first one. I watched it for the hero's journey training that I did years ago. With Star Wars, The Matrix, and The Wizard of Oz. And the three of them go through. But tying those journeys in is one of the things that helps understand those major. And we're all living them. We've all got our own hero's journey. We've all got those moments where everything has fallen away from us. And then we've come back generally stronger and generally with a different grounding. When we strip away everything and start from scratch,
you have to rebuild.
And
that's what happens with that one. And this is what we're talking about with the Major Arcana, is that there will be points in that journey where they're archetypal situations that the hero on his hero's journey goes through, i.e. the tower. And then there are archetypal characters that the hero must develop. For example, the Fool is the very first one. And the Fool is that adventurous, just jump off the cliff and see where I land. So the Fool has to make a leap at some point and take some risks instead of trying to stay safe and comfortable, which will never create any growth or any journey. And then there's things like the High Priestess, where he just starts to develop this inner knowing, this inner guidance that he has and that's available to him. And then he might, there's all these different characters along the way, and then interspersed with archetypal situations that, for the most part, we all experience at least once in our life, and that is the pattern of that particular Major Arcana.
And across the different areas of life. So that the Major Arcana, I suspect that the reason that they were given more weight, which like you, I'm not inclined to, is it's a more personalized story. It speaks directly to the core of where someone is on their journey, and people relate to that better than the energies and the numbers so often. It's interesting because I found the numbers and the like the suit cards, I found them much easier because as soon as the pattern was laid out, I grabbed the pattern, and that's my strength. The hero's journey, while the pattern is there, was much harder. It's a more philosophical pattern rather than logical pattern, and I do much better in the logical patterns.
It's actually interesting because most people are the opposite. They'll struggle with the numerology, the elements, and the court energies, of the speed, i.e. just beginning, whether it's a variable, whether it's stable, or whether it's a creative dynamic, in comparison to these archetypal, philosophical and experienced either embodiment, i.e. you must embody the fertility of the Empress, or this is your experience. You're going to be experiencing this tower energy. And they find that much easier to learn than the other side. So you're a bit of an anomaly in that sense, and you do it the opposite way.
And I saw it when I did the course with you, and I only did your shorter course. I think it was 6 weeks. But I saw it in the conversations I had with others that were in the course and navigating things. I'm like, and I do tend to be an anomaly and look at things from a very different perspective than most people.
Hence why you have this podcast.
I found that in so many rooms that I'm in. I was chatting with someone the other day about a training that we'd done together. She's like, it just didn't make sense. And I'm like, oh, it made perfect sense. And it's just that different ways our minds work that that shape the different preferences. And that's
Yeah, and here
okay.
we have your sparks, that leads you on to creating in this arena because
Yeah.
it's one of your sparks. So, well, for other people wouldn't even think about it, and here you are. And so other people who have this same spark as you, obviously, I've got a bit of it because I see it in the tarot. When I first started out with tarot, I was more into just learning what they were by, reading your guidebook and trying to remember. Now, once I saw the patterns, it's like throw that thing around, away. I don't need that at all because once you see the patterns, you can't then miss what's happening with your cards. You don't need the guidebook. So once I switched on to that, realizing it did have patterns, there's no remembrance needed whatsoever.
Which again will fit into those major arcana. It's that glimpse of knowledge and stepping into and trusting yourself. And for a lot of people, that's a big leap to go from I've got the guidebook, I can trust the guidebook, to I've got the knowledge, I can trust myself. And that will play out whether you're reading tarot or whether you're doing anything else in your life. There's that
And
journey.
on that note, Amy, you will not believe the power you feel when you do not have to pick up the guidebook.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's actually why I call my tarot course High Priestess Tarot, because it is the
It
power
is
that
that
you
high priestess.
feel. Yeah, and you do really feel as that high priestess. Now, for those of you who are not aware of the tarot, high priestess is one of the archetypes in the tarot. So, of course, that's the connection. And it is total trust and belief in the knowledge and also what you're receiving intuitively as well. Because tarot card plays a lot with the intuitive side as well. But for our purposes of the conversation, yes, it's actually full of patterns and profiles with our archetypes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, it's that moment. And I had it in coaching. I have had it in tarot. I haven't, it's one of those skills that you need to practice. And if you're not practicing it, it deteriorates like any skill. It's these
Mm.
things we have to continually use. But I had it in coaching. It's that where you can shift from the scripted questions to the understanding what's behind the questions and understanding
Yeah.
the patterns behind the questions. And for so many people, that's such a stretch is to, and part of it is trusting in ourselves. Part of it is just studying the patterns. I rarely, is that accurate? No, it's probably not accurate anymore. In the beginning, as a coach, I rarely trusted myself, but I could trust the models and I could formulate a question from the model. I didn't need the scripted question. I could just have, say, be, do, have as a model. Who do you need to be? What do you want to do? What's the ultimate result that you want to have? And generally, you work that backwards in a coaching session. And that's a really simple model. I've got far more complex models that I use. But when you can formulate the question because all you need is the keyword, it's the same as being able to intuitively and connect with the tarot cards. I know what the numbers mean. I know what the court cards mean. And I think initially when we did our course, you had us just using the minor arcana for a couple of weeks just to build that skill of
Exactly what
trusting in
happens.
those pieces.
Yep. So in the bigger course, because I can do the smaller course, but we're doing the full 6 months. So imagine the amount of time that it takes really, really in just totally going
Totally
down,
immerse in it. Oh,
immersing them
yeah,
in. Yeah.
absolutely.
So they haven't been able to touch their major part. They had to pull out the minor part. And in the beginning, like if they were just studying the pentacles, for example,
Mm,
um, and just studying the numerology and the court energies of the earth energy, that's all they were able to use for several weeks. They were not
yeah,
allowed to pick up anything because they had to totally understand what earth energy felt like in comparison to when they picked up their swords energies.
yeah,
So yeah, and it is that it is that spending time in those patterns. But none of these patterns are new to us. Most of the time we're blind because life in itself and nature in itself and this whole universe in itself is absolutely full of
mm,
these same patterns in existence
yeah,
all around us. As yet, most people are like this, just focused on, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work, eat, because that's the way our world is driven. and they don't get to see the patterns that are in all around us in nature and the universe. Tarot just brings those same patterns to us and we become more aware of them. So it is an opening in that section as well. This is why ancients worked with all these patterns and profiles. We don't seem to do them so much these days unless we're applying them to personal development or business or something. And yet they worked with them all the time because they were there sitting under campfires at night with no TV, watching the patterns in the sky and watching the patterns in the tree growth and everything else and watching the patterns of the seasons.
Yeah, and being able to watch what are the patterns of the seasons, that's how they survived because they had to plant their food. And looking, there's a spot up the backyard, and I looked the other day and went, need to plant some trees up there. And then I went, I know nothing about the patterns of the seasons enough to know when. I had enough sense to go, the middle of summer is not the time to plant
No,
new trees.
it's not the time to plant most of the trees you're going to want to plant, yeah, where you are.
That was about all I got was now is not the time. And at some point I'll go, but it's in the gardening, it's in cooking, it's in everything we do. The patterns are there.
It's in our age, it's in our lifespan.
It's yeah, it's everywhere. So for anyone wanting to learn more about how to play with tarot, the way you play with tarot and connect with you, where would be the best place for them to go to do that?
I have opened a school tarot community, and I think for me at this moment in time, that's the best place. So if anyone is willing to come into school and play on school, and just totally immerse in the world of tarot, then High Priestess Tarot is what the group is called on school. That's probably the best place to come in and learn about it. Hey, there will be, freebies and that, but then there will be the full-on course as well, which is what you and I have been referring to, the full-on immersion. And that's for anyone who's really seriously wants to go down the tarot rabbit hole and learn it. And as I said, the amount of power that you have when you don't have to reach for the guidebook, and trust that book. It is very much, we've developed ourselves to the point now where we have become the High Priestess. We can totally trust because we've observed all the patterns, all the processes that are happening in here, the profiles, and don't need to remember them as such. We've just immersed in it, so therefore know it.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift from I learnt this thing to I lived this thing. And what you're inviting, as far as I can tell, is your participants to live fully in observing and noticing those elements rather than just learning about them on a piece of paper.
Exactly. When you do the immersion with me, as I say, which is a longer period of time in it, but if we're, for example, studying the court energies, that's these, the page energy or the night energy. If we're looking at the night energy, I'll actually ask people to go and observe that night energy in the people around them. Like, who in your family has got that night energy? And some people come back very disappointed that they find that night energy in their husband because he hasn't quite grown up yet.
That would be very common. It's definitely looking for the experiences of it. And when we can look for the experiences of it, we don't need to hold the knowledge. It becomes an embodied.
It is embodiment, exactly. And that's what I talk about when you embody all this. And you can it's through awareness. We won't see these patterns unless we actually are aware. And so that's what we're building, the awareness of all these particular patterns. And then you become, just so good at tarot, and you just don't even have to read a guidebook or anything because you're so completely aware of these patterns, even in your own life and in your family around it. You'll see your pages, you'll see your knights, you'll see your queen, which is usually the mum. Most mums get into their queen phase. They seem to embody it. And then hopefully with a good stable husband, you've got your emperor. But unfortunately for a lot of ladies, they don't have kings. And they'll see that. So it's really, really interesting for them to start to bring that awareness into their tarot just through watching their own lives.
Well, and then it becomes a lived tarot. You get to notice it without even needing to pull out the deck. You can pull out the deck to confirm your observations, but you can start to see those patterns in your life and take it beyond relying on the tool alone. You start to trust in your own intuition, which is a powerful place to be, as you say.
And, tarot is just tarot and anything mystical. But, when I've looked at a lot of mystical stuff over all my years, I've kind of been pretty mystical kid from when I was tiny. I was the kid that was watching the ghost and vampire films while my friends were watching soapies like Home and Away, which I wouldn't have a bar of. I wanted to watch the vampire stuff. So that is part of my spark. That's what I love immersing in. I love immersing in this material. And then out of all those mystical subjects you could experiment with, I know that when we talked about I Ching, you were very attracted to the I Ching. I do like it, but it's not I found that tarot was my thing. And some people like to do their hands-on healing on that with Reiki and all that. But again, yeah, interesting. And I learnt it, but I didn't find that it just
Didn't
flowed
light you up.
through me. Yeah, like tarot does. So yeah, living it, if you feel it, really living it is all part of the journey of what your sparks are.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation. It has been amazing. For anyone wanting to connect with Vanessa, that link to her school community will be below. And I look forward to our next conversation. And again, I can't find the stop button. There we go.